Usually, when you think about the absolute pinnacle of human achievement, whether you're trying to write a masterpiece or solve some complex engineering problem or even achieve like profound spiritual enlightenment,
Right.
you probably imagine creating the absolute perfect physical environment for it. I mean, the modern instinct is to eliminate every single point of physical
Oh,
friction.
totally. You want the $1,000 ergonomic chair.
Exactly. The chair that supports every single vertebra, the temperature-controlled room kept at exactly 71 degrees, the noise-canceling headphones.
Pumping in the binaural beats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The underlying assumption is basically that the physical world is an obstacle. And the ultimate goal is to make your body so completely comfortable that you just, well, you forget it
So
exists.
your mind can just soar. Right. Unburdened. It's like the sensory deprivation tank model of human optimization.
That's a great way to put it.
We treat the physical body like this loud, obnoxious roommate. And, if we can just keep it fed and warm and resting on memory foam, it'll stay quiet and let the mind do the actual heavy lifting.
Right. So, keeping that modern obsession with perfect comfort in mind, I want you to picture this scenario. You decide you want to meditate, and you want to reach the absolute highest, razor sharp levels of mental clarity.
Okay.
Why in the world would you actively choose to bypass the plush sofa, drop down onto a hard wooden floor, and contort yourself into a cross-legged position?
I mean, it sounds awful.
Right. For anyone who has actually tried to just sit on the floor after a long day at the office, it does not feel like enlightenment. It feels like, well, medieval torture.
Yeah, your knees are screaming.
Your lower back aches almost instantly, and you find yourself constantly shifting your weight just to survive, the next 5 minutes. It seems like the absolute definition of unnecessary suffering.
It really does.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it just looks like a primitive technological limitation, right?
Yeah.
Like they just didn't know better. But today, we're going to look at the unexpected and deeply practical neurobiological benefits of these ancient physical postures in a world that is just overflowing with modern comforts. We are unpacking the perspective of a really fascinating source today.
Yes, Osman, also known as the Blind Muslim Yogi.
Right. We're drawing from his detailed video transcripts and teachings, which offer this incredible window into his specific biomechanical and psychological journey.
And before we really get into the mechanics of that journey, you really need to understand who Osman is, because his background provides this crucial context for why he approaches all of this with such a unique analytical lens.
Yeah, he's got quite a resume.
He does. He introduces himself as a master-level bioenergy healer, and he has telepathic healing capabilities that utilize quantum and entanglement principles.
Which is fascinating on its own.
Truly. He specializes in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses. And he's been practicing healing, yoga, and meditation at an advanced level for 50 years. I mean, he actually attained his first experience of samadhi, which is that profound state of spiritual absorption, by the age of 19.
19. That's just wild.
Yeah. And he's extensively studied various schemes of thought. His stated mission is to encourage a highly scientific approach to life. And we should clarify, he uses the term scientific, not centurion or anything like that. He wants to simplify complex methodologies from ancient yoga and meditation sciences.
And it is so vital to emphasize his approach to his healing practice here, because he's incredibly clear about the boundaries of his work.
Oh, absolutely.
While his therapies and the techniques he discusses are natural-based, he offers them as complementary services to enhance medical care, not to replace it.
Right, that's a huge distinction. If you have a medical condition, you absolutely must consult a licensed medical professional.
Exactly. His high success rate, which he attributes to his extensive study and really rigorous practice, I mean, sometimes up to 18 hours a day in earlier stages.
Oh.
Yeah, it makes it very sought after. And his premium energy healing services do have relatively high treatment fees, but he always maintains that crucial line between complementary natural energy practices and primary medical science.
And he actually notes that his 90% success rate isn't some mystical anomaly. It's just that people are unaware of this type of healing. He says if anyone follows his protocol, their natural energy improves, which naturally boosts their immunity by 90% all on its own.
Right, without even needing external energy healing.
Yeah, and you can find a lot of his resources, including a really great free 5-minute yoga and meditation program over at his website. That's yogawellness786.com.
And we should mention, he does not withhold information. His YouTube channel is packed with free, unique advice and techniques.
Yes, and if you want more direct interaction, you can access his Patreon for paid live, daily videos, online lessons, one-on-one consultations, and group sessions. Plus, he has a great podcast.
Right, you can find that on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just search for The Blind Muslim Yogi.
Definitely go like and subscribe to help him spread his mission. Oh, and one other really important thing to note as we dive into his material, he became permanently blind in May of 2023.
Right.
So when you hear him describing visual details or spatial awareness in his videos, he is drawing from a very deep well of memory. He's describing things that can only be articulated by someone who previously had normal eyesight.
His perspective is incredibly grounded, and that brings us back to the central mystery we're unpacking today. We're exploring why a man who had already achieved the absolute highest levels of meditative consciousness while utilizing the comforts of modern furniture decided to completely upend his practice.
Right, like why fix what isn't broken?
Exactly. He chose to endure the searing physical pain of adapting to the floor. And in doing so, he discovered these astonishing physical and mental upgrades that he didn't even know he was missing.
Because Osman's early approach to physical posture was, well, it was fiercely pragmatic. Even though he had been studying and practicing yoga from a young age, he looked at the traditional image of the ancient yogi sitting cross-legged in the dirt, and he just dismissed the absolute necessity of it.
Yeah, he essentially looked at these 5,000-year-old practices and concluded that they sat on the floor simply because they didn't have access to comfortable couches.
Right, or recliners.
And it's a logical trap we fall into constantly.
Oh, all the time.
We view history almost exclusively through the lens of technological progression. We just assume that earlier civilizations did things the hard way purely out of ignorance or a lack of resources.
Right. The modern mindset dictates that if an ancient yogi had access to a high-end lumbar-supporting recliner, they absolutely would have used it.
Totally. Osman assumed that sitting on the floor was merely a bug of antiquity, like an environmental byproduct, rather than a crucial feature of the actual neurobiological practice.
And he wasn't just theorizing about this to give himself an excuse to be lazy, you know. He actually proved his theory, at least to himself, for decades.
He meditated exclusively sitting on a chair or on a very comfortable couch.
And he wasn't just casually sitting there daydreaming. He achieved samadhi. He hit the absolute peak of the mountain while resting comfortably on Western furniture.
Which is wild, because achieving samadhi on a couch fundamentally challenges all that traditionalist gatekeeping. You know, the idea that suggests you must suffer physically to grow spiritually.
Yeah, the work from bed culture would love this.
Right. It proves that the human mind is remarkably powerful. Deep, laser-focused concentration and advanced mental states can indeed happen without strict adherence to ancient physical postures. The mind can transcend the physical environment, even if that environment is a plush, supportive sofa.
So he essentially found a massive cheat code. He bypassed the grueling physical pain of the floor entirely and still got the ultimate spiritual and cognitive result.
Yep.
So why on earth would he ever change a method that was already yielding peak results? I mean, if you've hacked the system, why would you intentionally go backward and subject yourself to the pain?
Well, because eventually you have to leave your private sanctuary.
True.
For Osman, the catalyst for his entire physical transformation did not happen in a state of deep meditation. It wasn't during a moment of profound spiritual inquiry.
No.
No, it was triggered by a purely social, deeply human dilemma.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. So fast forward in his life. He is in his mid to late 40s, and he has been living in the Middle East for well over a decade.
And the reality check happens during the holy month of Ramadan. Breaking the fast, iftar in the Middle East is this incredibly beautiful communal experience.
Massive gatherings.
Huge. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of people come together in a huge space. They receive food in bulk, and everyone gathers to wait for the exact moment the sun sets. Sometimes they're sitting together for 30 to 45 minutes before they break their fast.
There are no tables.
0 tables. There are no ergonomic chairs. Hundreds of people are sitting on the bare floor, completely at ease, effortlessly cross-legged, engaged in conversation.
And in the middle of this effortless communal gathering is Osman.
Just struggling.
Oh, he describes a deeply uncomfortable scene. He is physically struggling. He's in pain. He's awkwardly pulling one knee up to his chest, constantly shifting his weight from one side to the other, just desperately trying to find a position that is even mildly bearable for his lower back and his hips.
Sounds miserable.
All while surrounded by people who look like they could sit there for 3 days without a second thought.
And he is incredibly honest about this moment. He admits that he felt profoundly embarrassed. He felt awkward. He decided right then and there that he needed to figure out how to sit cross-legged. He wasn't trying to unlock a new spiritual chakra or achieve a higher plane of consciousness.
He simply wanted to survive these dinner parties without sticking out like a sore thumb.
Exactly. He just wanted the social friction to stop.
It is such a brilliant illustration of human motivation. So often, our most profound personal transformations are not initiated by some high-minded philosophical quest.
No, it's usually just vanity or embarrassment.
Exactly. They are kicked off by the intensely relatable desire to avoid looking awkward in front of our peers. Communal norms act as this incredibly harsh mirror. They expose the glaring blind spots in our physical capabilities that our private, highly curated environments hide from us.
Right, because Osman thought his physical capabilities were perfectly fine. His private, comfortable living room never challenged his hip mobility.
Never. And this exposes a terrifying reality about the modern world if you think about it. How quickly does modern comfort actually erode our natural human mobility?
Very quick. We think we're functionally normal until we're placed in a basic ancestral environment that demands natural human mechanics. Suddenly, we realize that our modern comforts have essentially encased us in an invisible, full-body cast.
An invisible cast is the perfect metaphor. The human body is the ultimate adaptation machine. It operates on a ruthless, use-it-or-lose-it biological policy.
Yeah, it really does.
A chair is not just a place to rest. It is an external structural support system that actively relieves your core muscles, your glutes, and your stabilizing tendons from doing their natural evolutionary work.
Which is terrifying when you sit all day.
Right. When you sit in a chair at a 90-degree angle for decades, your hip flexors adapt by physically shortening. Your glutes forget how to fire properly. There's a condition literally called gluteal amnesia.
Dead butt syndrome.
Yes. The body slowly, quietly molds itself to the exact geometry of the furniture. So when Osman finally got down on the floor, his body was fundamentally fighting the shape of the chair he had been sitting in for 40 years.
But he refuses to be the awkward guy at the Ramadan feast anymore. So following that experience, which was about 10 years prior to him recording the source material, he turns his own private space into a laboratory.
He goes to work.
Every evening, he starts practicing his meditation on his bed, utilizing his pillows and the headboard for structural back support, but forcing his lower body into a simple cross-legged position.
And he describes the process as grueling.
I can imagine.
It felt nearly impossible. The pain was searing. He utilized the discipline of incremental adaptation. He would sit in the posture until the physical pain became absolutely unbearable.
Just right to the edge.
Yeah, he would push his tissue right to the absolute edge of its tolerance, uncross his legs to find some relief, and then continue his meditation. Week by week, he slowly accumulated time under tension.
But brute force wasn't enough, was it?
No. Eventually, he realized that brute force and enduring pain just wasn't going to cut it. He needed a mechanical solution. So he started researching, watching videos, and he stumbled upon this crucial biomechanical secret.
Okay, if you are someone who struggles with sitting on the floor, pay close attention to this because it completely changes the paradigm. When we try to sit cross-legged and we inevitably feel sharp pain, we almost always feel it in our knees or our ankles.
Right, that's where the alarm bells go off.
Exactly. The natural instinct is to think, well, I have bad knees, my knees just can't do this. But the secret Osman discovered is that you cannot simply force your knees down.
Because the knee is a hinge joint. From an engineering perspective, it's a relatively dumb joint.
It just goes one way.
Right. It only wants to bend forward and backward. The hip, however, is a complex ball and socket joint designed for massive rotational movement. When your pelvic region and the tendons of your inner thighs are completely tight from years of chair sitting, the hip joint refuses to externally rotate.
So it gets stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you force yourself into a cross-leg position, that necessary rotational torque has to go somewhere. The locked hip transfers that torque directly into the knee joint.
Oh, yikes.
The knee is essentially acting as the victim of tight hips, which is what causes that excruciating carrying pain.
To fix this, Osman stopped focusing on his knees entirely. Instead, he would sit on the floor and bring the soles of his feet together in front of him. kind of similar to a butterfly stretch.
Right. Soles touching, knees splayed out to the sides.
And the crucial instruction here is to let the knees relax naturally. You do not push them down.
No forcing.
None. You do not bounce them to force a stretch. You use absolutely zero downward force.
Because the target of this specific posture isn't the knee joint at all. The goal is to isolate and gently stretch the complex web of tendons in the inner thigh, the adductors, that run all the way up and connect directly to the pelvis.
Okay.
Osman realized that once you use gravity and time to gently stretch and lengthen those specific pelvic and inner thigh tendons, the basic cross-legged position suddenly becomes infinitely easier.
Because the hip is finally doing its job.
Yes, the required rotation is finally happening at the ball and socket of the hip, where it structurally belongs, relieving the knee of all that rotational burden.
I think about breaking in a stiff, brand new pair of heavy leather boots.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
If you take those boots right out of the box and try to immediately force the toe to bend completely in half, you are going to crack the leather, you're going to pop the seams, and completely destroy your own foot in the process.
They'll ruin them.
Right. That is the brute force method of trying to jam your knees into the floor. But if you apply gentle, consistent pressure, if you just wear those heavy boots around the house for an hour a day, letting your natural body heat and gentle everyday movement work their way into the material, the thick leather slowly yields.
It softens up.
Week by week, it softens. It stretches at a microscopic level, and eventually it molds perfectly to the exact geometry of your foot. Osman was utilizing daily, gentle time under tension to slowly soften the thick, unyielding leather of his own inner thigh tendons.
And the wisdom in this anatomical approach is profound, because it actively subverts the modern no pain, no gain fitness mentality.
Totally.
Most people give up on floor sitting entirely, because the pain signals screaming from their ankles and knees are too loud and too dangerous to ignore. By shifting his mechanical focus to the soles of the feet, and prioritizing the relaxation of the pelvic floor, Osman biohacked his way past the dangerous joint pain and successfully structurally remodeled his lower body.
And this is where the story takes a massive, completely unexpected turn. Remember, Osman was putting himself through this grueling physical remodeling process entirely to save face at dinner parties.
Just to eat in peace.
He just wanted to eat comfortably at Ramadan gatherings. But once his body actually adapted to the floor, once those adductor tendons stretched and he could sit comfortably cross-legged for his evening meditations, he unlocked a massive cognitive reward that he had never anticipated.
Total surprise.
A persistent, frustrating problem that plagues almost all meditators simply vanished. He defeated the dreaded meditation nod.
The meditation nod is a universal hurdle. Previously, when Osman was meditating on his luxurious, deeply comfortable couch, he would frequently find himself battling sleepiness.
We've all been there.
His head would just nod off mid-session. The environment he created was so comfortable, soft, and supportive that his body naturally assumed it was time for sleep.
Makes sense.
The parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest network, simply powered his brain down.
But Osman noticed that as he transitioned to sitting cross-legged on the bare floor, this sleepiness was eliminated by 90%.
90%, that's huge.
Right, unless he was operating on a severe pathological sleep deficit and was just overwhelmingly exhausted, the physical posture of sitting cross-legged naturally and effortlessly kept him cognitively alert.
And the practical application of this for you, the listener, cannot be overstated.
Oh.
This isn't some esoteric, mystical benefit reserved for advanced yogis seeking enlightenment.
No, it's super practical.
Osman realized that this specific geometric posture vastly improves focus and concentration for highly pragmatic, everyday tasks. If you are reading a dense academic book, if you are studying for a difficult exam, or if you just need to focus on a complex piece of work, sitting cross-legged on the floor yields a significantly higher level of sustained concentration compared to sitting normally in a Western ergonomic chair.
Okay, but let's hold on and look at this 90% reduction in sleepiness critically.
Sure.
Is he actually gaining a neurological advantage in cognitive focus, or is it just that sleeping on a hard floor without back support is physically impossible because your muscles start to ache? I mean, if I try to sleep on a wooden bench or a bed of nails, I'm going to stay awake too, but not because I've unlocked laser-like cognitive focus, just because my environment is hostile.
Right, it's so comfortable.
Yeah, so is it merely the absence of soft cushions preventing sleep, or is there an active neurobiological mechanism at play here that actually demands high-level cognitive engagement?
It is a really vital distinction, And the science points entirely to an active neurobiological mechanism, not just the absence of comfort.
Really? Okay.
It involves a fascinating mind-body feedback loop centered around proprioception. When you sit on a modern couch, your body goes structurally passive. The couch does all the mechanical work of holding your mass against gravity.
Right, you just melt into it.
Your core muscles disengage, your spine slumps into the cushioning, and your nervous system receives a very clear environmental signal. It says, the body is completely safe, we are externally supported, we do not need to maintain muscular tension, power down the cognitive centers.
Wow. So the structural support of the couch essentially sends a localized signal to the brain to turn off the lights.
Precisely. But when you move to the floor and sit cross-legged, you are doing something entirely different. You are building a wide, grounded geometric base. You are actively, continuously engaging your core musculature.
You have to, just to stay up.
Right. Your spine is forced to align differently to balance your torso over your pelvis. This continuous low-level muscular engagement, combined with the micro-adjustments required for skeletal stabilization, sends a continuous stream of subtle proprioceptive signals up the spinal cord to the brain.
So it's always talking to the brain.
Always. Your body's internal GPS is constantly firing, telling the brain, we are actively holding a structure against gravity. We must remain alert to maintain balance.
That is incredible. So the physical posture itself acts as a remote control for your brain waves. You're utilizing physical tension to dictate your state of consciousness.
Exactly.
So Osman gets this massive upgrade in alertness. He conquers the basic cross-legged sit. The inner thigh tendons are stretched. He's not falling asleep anymore. And he can finally sit comfortably at Ramadan. But he doesn't stop there.
He keeps going.
He decides to push the biomechanical envelope. He starts exploring the highly advanced specific postures meticulously detailed in the ancient texts, like the Yoga Sutras.
And he begins to experiment with the complex geometries of advanced seated postures. Initially, he attempted what is widely recognized as Padmasana, or the full lotus position.
Well, it's a tough word.
This is the posture where one foot is pulled all the way up to rest high on the opposite thigh, and then the other foot is pulled up to rest on the other thigh.
It looks incredibly symmetrical and beautiful, but structurally, it looks like it requires the hip mobility of an Olympic gymnast.
And Osman discovered exactly that. While he could physically get himself into the contorted Padmasana position, the sheer structural demand on his hips and knees meant he simply couldn't sustain it for very long.
The tension is just too high.
Exactly. The muscular tension required to hold the joints in that extreme rotation was too high to allow for extended periods of relaxed meditation. However, his exploration led him to a highly effective, incredibly sophisticated transitional posture.
Okay, what is it?
It is a second-level geometry between the simple cross-legged sit and the full lotus, known as Siddhasana.
Siddhasana. The mechanics of Siddhasana are where the real structural magic happens. Let's walk through exactly how you engineer this position, because it sounds more like assembling a piece of architecture than stretching a muscle.
It is pure biomechanical engineering. You begin by sitting flat on the floor with both legs perfectly straight out in front of you. First, you take your right leg and bend the knee. You pull your right heel all the way in toward your body until it makes direct contact with the perineum.
Right in the center.
Yeah, the area between the genitals and the anus.
Yeah.
It does not need to press forcefully. It just needs to establish firm physical contact.
Okay, so the right heel is pulled into the perineum.
Now, Osman highlights a crucial, frequently misunderstood detail that dictates whether this posture succeeds or fails. You absolutely do not sit on the heel.
Oh, that would hurt.
If you drop the full weight of your torso directly onto your heel, you will immediately cut off blood circulation, compress the nerves, and cause immense physical pain.
So what do you do?
Instead, you roll your hips back slightly, so your ischial tuberosities, your sit bones, make firm contact with the floor, and you let your pelvic floor drop just in front of the heel. The heel acts as an anatomical wedge, sitting right behind the pubic bone, not as a seat.
That is a massive distinction. The heel is a structural wedge, not a chair leg taking the vertical load. Okay, so the right leg is wedged. What happens to the left leg?
You then bend your left knee, bringing the left heel directly above the pubic area. Finally, you take the toes of your left foot and you physically slide or wedge them tightly between the calf and the thigh of the right leg.
Like locking it in place.
Yes, you are literally weaving your lower limbs together to lock the structure in place.
You're tying your legs into a specific knot. But why? What is the profound architectural benefit of wedging your feet and heels into these highly specific anatomical pockets? Why not just sit normally?
The result of this specific geometry is a masterpiece of skeletal alignment. When you wedge that right heel at the perineum and physically lock the left leg in place, it forces the pelvis to naturally and effortlessly tilt slightly forward.
Ah, the pelvic tilt.
That slight forward pelvic tilt is the holy grail of seated posture. It provides the perfect, structurally sound foundation for the entire spinal column. It correctly aligns the natural curve of the lumbar spine, which in turn perfectly stacks the thoracic and cervical spine directly above it.
It essentially forces perfect posture from the ground up.
Exactly. Osman notes that when Siddhasana is executed correctly, your torso naturally leans slightly forward to the point where your wrists rest effortlessly just past your knees around your lower forearm. The biomechanical magic is that this natural forward tilt and stacked spine keeps your back perfectly erect without the need for a wall, without a backrest, and most importantly, without the constant muscular fatigue of your back muscles straining to hold you upright against gravity.
I have a perfect analogy for this. Think about the engineering concept of architectural tensegrity, or more simply, a high-end camera tripod.
Okay, yeah.
If you take a heavy, expensive camera and try to balance it on a single stick, or even two sticks, it immediately falls over. You have to constantly grip it, constantly use your own muscular energy to micro-adjust and keep it upright.
It's exhausting.
Right. But if you deploy a tripod, the specific angles of the legs and the tension between the central hub create a structure that holds itself up perfectly, completely independent of you. By locking the heels and the toes into these specific muscular crevices and tilting the pelvis, you are essentially turning your lower body into a self-supporting tensegrity structure.
Yes.
You have literally built a chair out of your own bones, tendons, and gravity.
Becoming your own chair is the exact biomechanical reality of Siddhasana. You are utilizing skeletal stacking and gravitational tension rather than muscular exertion to maintain an upright posture. And if we look at how this applies to Osman's original catalyst, that deeply embarrassing moment at the crowded Ramadan dinner,
Right, the whole reason he started this.
mastering this posture gives him the ultimate superpower of physical autonomy. He noted that in those massive crowded rooms, wall space is prime real estate. Not everyone can find a wall to lean against.
True.
But if you master Siddhasana, you gain absolute freedom. You can sit perfectly upright, completely pain-free, completely cognitively alert anywhere in the world, totally independent of your architectural environment. You no longer need the external world to support your physical body.
You carry your perfect environment with you. But there is another layer of nuance in Osman's journey with Siddhasana that involves a fascinating biological dilemma regarding asymmetry in the human body.
The right versus left.
Right. When Osman was first figuring out the mechanics of locking his legs together, he initially didn't think it mattered at all which leg went on the bottom and which went on top. He was just doing whatever felt easiest for his hips at the time. He actually started his practice by bringing his left heel in to touch the perineum first, and then weaving the right leg on top.
It seems like a logical, arbitrary choice based on personal flexibility, like whatever feels better.
Yeah. But as he delved deeper into the ancient texts, specifically consulting the traditional instructions in the Yoga Sutras, he discovered a very strict, specific rule. The ancient texts explicitly mandate that you must start with the right heel first.
Your right heel must form the base.
The right heel must go to the perineum to form the base, and the left leg must go on top.
And Osman, approaching this with a highly scientific, pragmatic mindset, didn't just blindly accept the ancient dogma. He wanted to understand the structural logic behind the rule. Does the right leg actually matter mechanically, or is it just a symbolic, arbitrary tradition?
What does he find?
He unpacked the physical logic, and it comes down to a deep understanding of biomechanical dominance and load distribution. He deduced that for the vast majority of the human population, the right side of the body, and specifically the right leg, is the dominant, inherently stronger and more stable limb.
Because the vast majority of human beings are right-handed and therefore right-side dominant in their daily movement patterns, our right leg is usually our primary stabilizing leg.
Exactly. Therefore, if you are attempting to build a foundational architectural base that is meant to support the entire structural weight of the human torso for hours on end, it makes perfect mechanical sense to utilize your strongest, most dominant limb as the primary load-bearing pillar at the bottom of the structure.
That makes so much sense.
The stronger right leg creates the unyielding foundation, while the relatively weaker, perhaps more flexible left leg rests securely on top, completing the lock. It is fundamental structural engineering applied to human anatomy. Yeah. Put the strongest beam at the bottom of the structure.
It is incredibly satisfying when a rule that sounds mystical or esoteric in an ancient text turns out to just be fundamentally sound structural engineering and lateralized biology.
It really is.
And adopting this optimal right leg dominant structure leads to the final and frankly most profound phase of Osman's physical journey. This is where the grueling years of practice, the agonizing stretching of the inner thigh tendons, and the precise wedging of the heels finally yield the ultimate reward. He achieves the final release.
Osman explains that as you advance and as your central nervous system and fascial tissue truly adapt to this structurally perfect posture, a remarkable physiological shift occurs. He describes a sensation of spiritual energy beginning to fill the body.
Wow.
The physical form, which was once rigid, tense, and actively screaming in pain, becomes incredibly loose and remarkably flexible.
The ultimate culmination of this structural mastery is that you actually lose all consciousness of the physical body itself. Because the skeleton is perfectly aligned with the downward force of gravity and the joints are completely open and relieved of rotational torque, the body stops screaming for the brain's attention.
It just goes quiet.
Osman found that he could stay locked in that cross-legged position for hours and hours without even a hint of discomfort. The physical body essentially disappears from his conscious awareness.
It is a state of transient hyperfrontality, where the sensory input from the body simply fades into the background. And this represents the ultimate paradox of physical mastery, bringing Osman's journey completely full circle.
Yeah, think about where he started.
He began his deep meditation journey on the plush couch. On the couch, he was attempting to ignore the body by making the external environment so soft and comfortable that he didn't have to think about his physical form. He was trying to bypass physical discipline to free the mind.
But the couch was secretly hijacking his nervous system. It was putting him to sleep 90% of the time, or at the very least, severely muddying his cognitive alertness with parasympathetic signals telling him to rest. The passive comfort was a biological trap.
And we see that everywhere now. Osman even points out that ailments like cancer are often a result of modern lifestyles that deplete our natural energies.
Yeah.
The way we sit, the way we passively exist, it drains us. Right.
But by facing the intense initial discomfort of the floor, by dedicating years to mastering the physical vessel and aligning its biomechanics perfectly with the forces of gravity, he achieved true physical silence. His natural spirituality and yoga protocols replenished that lost energy.
Because when an architectural structure is perfectly balanced, it doesn't groan under its own weight.
Exactly. The body stops sending distress signals, like aching knees, a tired lower back, or heavy eyelids, to the brain. The physical structure becomes functionally invisible.
And that perfect biomechanical invisibility frees the mind far more completely, and with far more razor-sharp alertness than the plush cushions of a couch ever could. He earned his physical transcendence through meticulous structural mastery, rather than trying to purchase it with modern ergonomic comfort.
It absolutely proves that these ancient techniques are not just quaint cultural artifacts or arbitrary religious rituals. They are highly sophisticated instruction manuals for human optimization, written thousands of years before we possess the anatomical or neurobiological language to describe exactly why they work. They are essentially ancient blueprints for manipulating the human nervous system through skeletal geometry.
They really are.
Yeah.
And for those intrigued by Osman's highly analytical scientific approach to these ancient sciences, I highly recommend exploring his resources. You can find his free 5-minute yoga and meditation program at yogawellness786.com.
And he's got so much free content on his YouTube channel, too.
Yes, or by searching for the Blind Muslim Yogi on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Plus his Patreon, if you want those deep one-on-one sessions.
We started this deep dive looking at the modern illusion of perfect comfort. We assume that softer is always better, that less physical effort always equals a better environment for the mind. Osman's journey proves that his deeply comfortable couch was actually an active detriment.
It was working against him.
It was silently robbing him of 90% of his cognitive sharpness and alertness without him even realizing it, simply because the lack of physical friction felt good in the moment. So as you go about the rest of your day, take a hard look around your environment. Look at your house, your office setup, the seat in your car.
The couch as you sink into.
Right. If a soft couch was silently degrading Osman's mental focus and locking away his natural physical mobility, what other modern comforts in your daily life are quietly, silently eroding your natural human capabilities right now simply because they demand nothing of you?